on structural adhesives presented by SEM. I'm Melissa Jolls with RDA Impact, and Larry Trexler, Marketing Manager, Technical Services and Training for SEM, is your presenter today. The presentation will take approximately 25 to 30 minutes, and we are recording it and we'll post it on our website under training videos. If you do have questions, you can type them in the chat box at the bottom right of your screen, and Larry will answer them during the presentation. Now I'm going to turn it over to Larry.
All right, thanks, Melissa, and thanks to everybody at RDA, all the members, for the opportunity to be on here today, and we're going to talk about just something that's a new category that's on the market. I'm sure a lot of you have probably been hearing about what we call structural or impact-resistant adhesives. So, we definitely this presentation is going to take us through what they are, where they're to be used, what the product is in our line that we have for these types of adhesives. And as Melissa was saying, if you have questions, don't wait until the end of the broadcast. If you have anything, definitely type it in, and we'll handle them as we go along. So with that being said, I felt like probably the best thing that we could do is actually start with, what is a structural or impact resistant adhesive, and what makes them different from your standard panel bonding adhesives that have been on the market for years. So as you can see here on the slide, this is a 2016 Chevy Camaro, and when we talk about standard panel bonding in all the classes that we do here in Rock Hill, I still get a lot of people that come through that they sell a lot of panel bonding adhesive or even use a lot of panel bonding adhesive, but they're not really certain, well, what is a structural and what's not structural on a vehicle. So, to start off with, when you walk up to this car in a parking lot, everything that you see on this vehicle is a cosmetic panel. So, the good part is that a lot of these panels, for say, like the entire front end of the vehicle, if you have a front end collision or just a bump up, well, all of those panels are made to be, bolted off, and you just bolt new ones on. And, so you're talking about the front fenders, you're talking about the hood, you're talking about the front bumper cover. And on the back of the car, you're talking about the trunk lid, and you're talking about the rear bumper cover. So all of those, you can just bolt those off and bolt new ones on. So what you're left with afterwards is these three panels here: the roof skin, the door skin, and the quarter panel. Now, granted, yes, the doors also bolt on and off, but depending on the damage and how severe it is, you can just replace that skin. These three panels are what we're talking about with standard panel bonders in order to be able to use a regular panel bonding adhesive. And that's the way it has been for years, and that's the way it will be, moving forward. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about standard panel bonding. When we talk about structural adhesives, however, this is where it really begins to change. And this is when you strip away all of those cosmetic panels that we just talked about, that leaves us with the structural components of the car, the chassis, if you will. So this is the same car, the 2016 Chevy Camaro, and what the structural portion of that vehicle looks like. When you get to looking at where a structural adhesive would be used, this is in red here. You can see this is the actual adhesive path for the structural adhesive. So structural adhesives are used in a completely different way than your standard panel bonders, and depending on the vehicle that it's being used on, you look at this is just a side view of this Camaro, and what we could actually show on here on this slide. When you look at the cross view of the vehicle, it runs from one side to the other. So, across the rear of the car and across the front of the car. So there's quite a bit of this adhesive that's being used out there. When we talk about how did we get to where we are today, and where did this adhesive come from? It really goes all the way back to 2007, and GM wrote what I know of as the first spec for what they call an IR adhesive, or impact resistant adhesive. A lot of people, when you look at, we're not the only company that has this product, obviously, but there are several out there that put out flyers and they show these tubes that have been crushed and everything else. But ultimately, what they use this adhesive for is actually to stiffen up the chassis of the car. When you think about this Camaro, for instance, and if you're a car person, when you get in this Camaro and you start driving down the road and you take a high-speed turn with it, you don't want to feel any sag in that chassis of the car. You want it to behave and act and feel like a sports car. And that's what this adhesive does, is it adds a little bit of rigidity to the chassis of the vehicle, so that it just makes it feel like a little bit more of a sports car handling type of feel to it. Generally, when whether you're in the shop and you're doing these types of repairs, generally you can identify this adhesive by its distinct color. And for General Motors, for instance, it's going to be a purple adhesive. And when I say purple, it's like a Barney the dinosaur purple. So it's a really bright purple. There's no way you can mistake it. When you talk about those colors, and I know that, there's purple adhesives that are out there from some of our competitors. There's blue ones. One of the things that I want to make sure that you understand is that from the manufacturer's point of view, they don't want anybody in the aftermarket to actually replicate that exact same color. So they don't care what color adhesive it is that we have that we put back on it. So that is also important. These adhesives, they're known by a lot of different names depending on the company and the manufacturer. Some people call them structural adhesives. Some people call them impact resistant adhesives, or IR. Some people call them crash toughened or fracture toughened. But as one thing that I wanted to make sure and underline was the word structural. There's companies, there's a lot of companies that have adhesives on the market. And there's been what we call structural adhesives on the market for years. But it's important to know that just because somebody has an adhesive in their line that's called a structural adhesive, that doesn't mean that it's an impact resistant adhesive. It's almost like a mislabeled product, if you will. So make sure that if the customer's got one of these types of vehicles and they're trying to do this repair, it's extremely important that they make sure that they're choosing the correct adhesive. Some people have what they call structural adhesives, and it's no more than just a standard panel bonder. So you do have to be careful about that. It's another, when we talk about where it's being used, it's also important to talk about how it's being used. And, at least in General Motors' case, it's never going to be used as a standalone adhesive. It will always be used with rivets or welds. So you're going to have one of those two, and those are the primary attachment methods. The adhesive is more of the secondary, but it will always be used with one of those two combinations. These are some of the vehicles that that this adhesive is more readily available on. Of course, we've been talking about the Chevy Camaro. We've been, also when we talk about Cadillac, the Cadillac CTS and the CT6, all three of these vehicles use this type of adhesive. I also know that Chrysler uses it very sparingly. I think it's just one vehicle in one little spot that they use it. And I know that some people have talked about Ford using a red adhesive on their new F-150s. If I'm not mistaken, that is not on the F-150. Even though it's being used on a structural component of that truck, that is not an impact resistant adhesive. That is, they're just calling for a standard panel bonder for the F-150. So, like I said, it is important that you make sure that you follow the guidelines that are set forth from the manufacturer, and they'll make sure and tell them that it is an impact resistant or fracture toughened adhesive. So, what makes these structural or impact resistant adhesives different? Well, first of all, the spec that was written back in 2007, and to tell you, how much work and time has gone into this, all of the companies who have one of these types of adhesives have been working on it since that time. And we just now got to the point here in the last 2 years where we started, where we were able to hit the spec. First of all, in the lapse year component, they are stronger, but that's not the main characteristic. The main characteristic is the fact that they're more flexible. So when we talk about standard panel bonding adhesives, you're talking about a lapse year of anywhere between 28 to 3,200 pounds on average is what it takes to pull one of those apart. Versus this impact resistant adhesive, it can be over 4,000 pounds, and quite often is over 4,000 pounds. But the main part of this is that it has to be able to absorb the shock of a crash. Most panel bonding adhesives, if hit in a crash, they're going to fracture. So they're going to basically split. And when you're using them on cosmetic panels, that generally isn't a problem. But when you're talking about using it on a structural component of a car, you don't want this adhesive to fracture. So it has to have that little bit of flexibility to be able to absorb that impact. And that's what these impact resistant adhesives do. As a matter of fact, you can actually see the picture on this slide are some panels that we had done some testing with, some lapse year testing. And out of the 5 panels, and these are not 1-inch lapse years, these are 1/2-inch lapse years. But 3 of the 5 actually broke the steel that it was on instead of actually breaking the bond. And if you actually can look at this a little bit closer, this was at 80 degrees Celsius. That's 180 degrees Fahrenheit. And that is one of the tests, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. The corrosion resistance is a big component of an IR adhesive. Obviously, you're using this on a structural component of a vehicle. You want to make sure that it's going to hold up to any type of corrosion that it comes into contact with. So you have a 480-hour salt spray test that it has to undergo. You also have a 42-day cyclic test. And what a cyclic test is when you run it through a variety of conditions all within one test. High humidity, low humidity, different temperatures, different, you name it, it's in there. And then also it has to go through a 120-hour water test. And what that means is that these panels are completely submerged in water for 120 hours and then pulled out and tested. The extreme temperature testing, they're tested from anywhere between minus 40 degrees up to 180 degrees. So that is a large variety of temperature that these panels have to go through and have to pass the spec that was written. And then, of course, the wedge impact, the peel test. And that is, where these adhesives generally get their name. They have to be able to withstand being split in two by a large wedge that comes into contact with them. And they also have to do that at different temperature ranges from minus 40 to 180. So a lot of a pretty stringent spec that had to be met with these adhesives. Our adhesive for this is called structural impact resistant adhesive, and we just nicknamed it CIRA for short. The part number you can see at the top is 39757. And with this product, it is an OEM recommended product from General Motors. It's covered underneath what we call our Dual Mix Forever warranty, and we stand behind that product for life. As I just mentioned, it is OEM recommended. It has excellent corrosion resistance, a 60-minute working time, and then the minimized downtimes with multiple heat, set, and cure options. The first thing that shops are going to notice is that an impact-resistant adhesive is a lot slower as far as the set and the cure than a standard panel bonding adhesive is. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to give the shop a couple of different options. Yes, you can, as far as the set time, which is what I'm showing here, you can air dry it at 70 degrees. But if you want to pull it into a booth at 140 for about 45 minutes, you can make it kick. Or if you want to throw an infrared lamp on it at 180 degrees, you can make it go even faster at about 15 minutes. So we give a lot of different options, and that gives a lot of flexibility to the shop to be able to speed through these repairs and not have to sit there for a full day waiting on an adhesive to dry. The other thing that this product does have, it does have the spacer beads in it for a consistent bond line thickness. And of course, it has to be rivet and weld bonding compatible because that's how it's being used from the factory. And it has a better vertical hold over one of our leading competitors. So what are some of the changes from standard panel bonding adhesives? Well, the good news is that you're not changing a whole lot from your standard adhesives. First of all, I think probably the most important thing is always make sure that the shop follows the procedural guidelines when it comes to removing the E-coat or not to remove the E-coat. They obviously do a lot of testing with these types of products and make sure that that they come up with the best guidelines for that. You know, because these adhesives are always going to be used with rivets or welds, the best thing a shop can do is mark the locations for these during the dry fit of the panel, making sure that, okay, I'm getting ready to put this panel on, so I need to make sure that I mark where these rivet holes are going to go or where the welding is going to happen. So you do that up front. The other thing that changes on typical panel bonding adhesives, depending on what manufacturers you're selling, we usually recommend 24, 36 grit, sometimes even 50 grit. But these impact resistant adhesives, we're actually recommending 80 grit. And I think everybody on the market actually recommends 80 grit for their sand scratch on that. It's also really important to make sure that they're using, that they're doing the grind mark well. You know, you're generally doing this with a die grinder that turns 20,000 RPM. That's way too fast. And what that does is it allows the grinding disc to skip across the surface and basically polish it instead of actually putting a grind mark in. So, you know, put a cheater valve on that thing, knock the RPMs down just a little bit so that it can let that grinding disc get in there and put a good grind mark in there. The other thing is that when you install the rivets or do your welding, that obviously has to be done while the adhesive is wet during its working time. And, you know, like I said, that's an hour for this product. And then, of course, the last thing is just making sure to use heat to speed up the set and the cure times. So in closing, you know, I just want to make sure, you know, we talk about equipping your sales. First of all, if you haven't been to semproducts.com, we do have a new website that was just launched this past week. So a ton of information is on there. We have an OEM recommended category that's there. We have product pages with TDSs, safety data sheets, videos, literature, you name it, anything that you could possibly want is on this website. So if you haven't been on there, please take a moment, go there and check that out. It's really, really impressive. We use a third-party company to gauge our website and its ease of use, and for the last 3 years, we've actually had the best website in the business. So we're really proud of this. The other thing is, and you can find this on the website, is our standard operating procedures, the SOPs. We have 14 of those available, from everything from panel bonding to seam sealing, plastic repair, you name it, is probably on there. So, you know, the main thing that's important about these SOPs is just making sure that the shop can replicate that procedure each and every single time so that they have consistent results. We have those available. You can just print them off of the website, or you can actually contact us, and we actually have them in poster size as well. And then we also have, I just talked about the website, but our social media. This is something that we're getting a little bit more involved in with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also our YouTube channel that we've had for quite a while with a ton of videos on there. But on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, we do a lot of neat things with this. And if you're, like I said, if you want to join us, we do on Mondays what's called Manufacturing Monday, which we kind of, show you a little bit of the inside operations of our company and show you different employees making certain products. So you get a chance to see how these products are actually made. On Tuesday, we have what's called Tech Tip Tuesday, which we pick out, a tech tip, things that'll help guys in a shop using the products. On Wednesday, we have one called We Love Our Customers Wednesday. And, if you have a customer that's used our products and, sends us photos, a lot of times we'll just post those. And then on Thursday, we do Throwback Thursday, which we kind of show some of the old products and how we got started in this business. We've been in business since 1948, so quite some time. At the bottom of this page is a link called Be the First to Know. And you can't actually get to it by going to our website, so you'll actually have to type this in, but if you type in www.semproducts.com/first. And what we do is we send out a newsletter once a month that has, the most important information for you, new products, new promotions. It's just like I said, if we just do this once a month, we don't sell your email addresses to any companies. So you get that one email a month from us, and if you would like to sign up for that, please write this link down and go there. We'd love to be able to send you guys some information. Sorry about that. So in closing, I also want to say probably the most important part is our tech hotline, and that 1-800 number. We have 3 guys that man the tech line here. I'm in charge of the tech line, and we always tell customers that we have the best tech line in the business, and that's not a title that we give to ourselves. That's a title that a lot of our customers give us, and we're very appreciative of that. We take our tech help very, very seriously. So if you have a question, pick up the phone, call us. The good news is that 1-800 number is on every label of product that we have. So by all means do that. And of course you see my email address there as well. I'll be glad to help you any way I can. So with that being said, I think I told Melissa that I would take about 20 to 25 minutes, and we're right here at it. So I appreciate it. Thank you for this opportunity. Hopefully this clears up a little bit about what the differences are between panel bonders and structural adhesives. And we're looking forward to helping you in any way we can.
Thanks, Larry. I don't see any questions, and I will follow up with everybody who attended the webinar, and I'll send you Larry's information. So if you do have questions, you can follow up with him later. And we'll be in touch with future training opportunities. Thanks, everybody, for your attendance. And Larry, thank you for a great presentation. Bye, everyone.
Melissa.
Okay.